for peace. Pope Francis offers an intercession against war in his Easter blessing of hope. Violence in Ukraine. Learn about Russia's new round of attacks in our report from the war-torn country. Fight for the unborn. A state's new pro-life law is signed on Holy Thursday. We have a closer look. And he is risen indeed. Easter comes anew to the Holy Land and to Rome. On EWTN News Nightly for Monday, April 18th, 2022. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sabol. People fleeing the fighting in eastern Ukraine are now witnessing attacks in the western part of the country. Russia bombed the city of Lviv, killing at least 7 people. Thick black smoke rose over the city following a series of explosions. Lviv has only seen sporadic strikes until this point. Ukrainians are still fighting to keep the port city of Mariupol. And Philip Crowther, Associated Press affiliate correspondent, joins us now from Lviv. Philip, great to see you. Tell us more about the situation on the ground in Lviv.
Yeah, well, this was the first time for a long time that we saw those plumes of black smoke here over this western city of Lviv. Only once so far since Russia's invasion of Ukraine had there been attacks on another target within this city. What we saw here in the morning were 4 missiles that came in. I heard 2 of them, saw some of these explosions just a few miles away from here. And what we found out later from Ukrainian authorities is that these were 4 missiles that hit, at least in 3 cases, their intended military targets. We don't have any more details on what exactly those targets were. Military infrastructure is as far as the explanation here goes. But the other one doesn't appear to have hit its target, except if a car repair shop seems like a legitimate military target, because that's what we saw a few hours ago here in Lviv when we went to where one of those missiles struck, a car repair shop where the cars were burnt out, the houses were destroyed, and in fact right next to it stood, or still stands, a hotel in which a lot of displaced people from other parts of Ukraine were staying because they had fled the east, for example, to come here to the west to be in a safer place. They might feel differently about this area now. And the death toll you just said, 7 dead at least, 11 injured at least, and among those 11, 3 in a critical condition. Among the injured, by the way, a 3-year-old boy, according to the local authorities here in Lviv. Not badly injured, but he, they tell us, came here to Lviv with his mother from Kharkiv. Kharkiv is in the northeast, just outside of the Donbass area, a very dangerous place right now, and they must feel like they're in a slightly more dangerous place than they thought they were going to be in here in Lviv tonight.
And Philip, I'm curious, any idea why it was targeted, Lviv?
Yeah, it's a good question. It looks like what we're seeing now happening over the last few hours, in fact, is that Russian offensive that had been talked about so much, that had been expected, appears to be underway now in the east of Ukraine, in the Donbass region. That's where Russian troops want to take control of as large a part of that territory as they possibly can. Now, what does this part of the country so far away have to do with it? Well, it would look like Russian forces are trying to hurt Ukrainian military infrastructure, its logistics chain as well, because through the western Ukraine come a lot of weapons shipments, for example, toward the center of Ukraine and toward the east of Ukraine, where those weapons are so needed. That's why military targets are being hit, and it was something that Moscow had warned about, that more military targets were going to be hit in the capital city, Kyiv. Well, it turns out that's not the only place that has been targeted by Russia over the last few days as part of what would appear to be a new tactic of hitting places with missiles outside of the east, but at the same time that ground offensive starting in that Donbass region in the east right now.
Philip, we have a little less than a minute left, but I do want to ask you this. You know, over the weekend, President Zelensky said that Ukraine needs to be prepared for the possibility of a nuclear attack from Russia. How are Ukrainians reacting to that, and what are you hearing?
Look, the thing is that this is a country that has had to adapt so quickly that to a new reality that people are not really shocked, but to hear sentences like that one from their own president, a very popular man, by the way, right now here in Ukraine. These people have had to adapt very, very quickly to this new reality, from being a country at peace, though knowing relatively at peace. They'd been at war for 8 years in the Donbass region with Russian-backed separatists, but never thought that it could come to this, to an all-out war by its neighbor against the whole of the Ukrainian territory. And they've seen the things that have happened in their country. They've seen what Russian troops left behind on the outskirts of Kiev. They are seeing the death count go up terribly in cities like Mariupol in the southeast as well, that nothing would surprise people here. That is the simple truth. And that includes people here in Lviv. This is a very peaceful place, except this morning when those missiles struck here in western Ukraine.
So concerning. Phil, thank you so much for your reporting. We appreciate it. Please stay safe. Pope Francis says, no more wars. Let us be overcome by the peace of Christ.
Per favore, non abituamoci alla guerra.
After presiding over Easter Sunday Mass in St. Peter's Square with almost 100,000 people gathered, Pope Francis gave the traditional blessing. The Holy Father prayed for peace in Ukraine and said, in this terrible night of suffering and death, may a new dawn of hope soon appear. He added, only the Lord can bring us true peace. President Joe Biden and European allies have been targeting Vladimir Putin and several oligarchs with punishing sanctions. But today, Russia's president fires back, claiming those sanctions have failed. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, as Western nations financially squeeze Russia, going after banks, energy, and even multi-million-dollar yachts, the Russian leader, known for distortions, intimidation, and lies, remains defiant.
Стратегия экономического блицкрига.
In televised remarks with top economic officials, Russian President Vladimir Putin contends U.S. and European sanctions imposed on his country have actually backfired, helping him and hurting the West. Still, President Joe Biden calls him a war criminal who is guilty of genocide against Ukraine. And back in the U.S., the White House reminds Americans it's tax day. And President Biden wants to go after the ultra-rich. The White House writing, President Biden is calling on Congress to pass legislation requiring the wealthiest American households to pay a minimum of 20% on all of their income, including unrealized investment income that currently is untaxed. But just today, Senator Tim Scott tweeting, the Biden administration's reckless policies have caused sky-high inflation that puts us at risk. This administration needs to turn the tide before it's too late. Meanwhile, on a cool, cloudy, rainy South Lawn, the return of the White House Easter egg roll, which in past years fell victim to the pandemic. President Biden and the First Lady welcoming kids and adults.
All of you, have fun today. Welcome to the White House. Welcome to your house. Welcome to the South Lawn. Thank you and happy, happy Easter.
Just yesterday, President Biden called Easter a day of joy and hope, of renewal and rebirth, and highlighted what he called the basic dignity and respect for all of God's children.
Also tonight, yet another update on the national mask mandate on planes and trains. It was recently extended for a few weeks. Well, now today a judge in Florida just shot that down, saying U.S. health officials exceeded their authority. It's not clear if the feds will appeal that ruling. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a 15-week abortion ban into law. It happened on Holy Thursday. EWTN News contributor Catherine Hadra was there and tells us why this was such a significant move for the Sunshine State.
We are here today to protect life.
One of the most sacred days on the Catholic calendar, now a historic day for Florida's pro-life movement.
It's really an incredible day, an incredible moment.
Very significant and very momentous.
On Holy Thursday, inside of an Orlando Christian church, Catholic Governor Ron DeSantis signed Florida's 15-week abortion bill into law.
This will represent the most significant protections for life that have been enacted in this state in a generation.
The law will go into effect on July 1st and comes as the nation awaits the Supreme Court ruling in the Dobbs case, centered on Mississippi's 15-week abortion ban that could reverse Roe v. Wade and send the abortion issue back to the states. Florida State Senator Kelly Stargel is the Senate sponsor of the bill, who says she kept a post-Roe world in mind.
I do believe that if something happens or Roe v. Wade is overturned, Florida's going to be in a much better position to continue the work we've been doing in trying to protect life.
Hundreds of pro-lifers packed this bill signing in Orlando because it marks a dramatic shift in Florida's abortion law, taking it from a 24-week abortion limit to 15.
In 2020 alone, Florida reported nearly 75,000 abortions. That's the third highest number of abortions in the nation. Florida's new pro-life law will ban late-term abortions, with exceptions for the life of the mother or a baby's deadly abnormality. Erin Grawl is the state representative who sponsored the bill. A Catholic herself, she believes God is at work with this new pro-life protection.
There are things like this that give hope and light and show us that he continues to work every day.
Reporting from Orlando, Florida, Catherine Hadro, EWTN News Nightly.
We should know Catherine says this law is not without its critics, who point out that most Florida abortions take place before the 15-week mark, and pro-abortion opponents, including Catholic President Joe Biden, have called the legislation dangerous. Turkey has carried out a military attack against suspected Kurdish rebels in northern Iraq. The combination of airstrikes and ground operations killed at least 19 militants while injuring 4 Turkish troops. Hostilities between Turkey and the Kurdistan Workers' Party go back to the 1980s. Turkey alleges the PKK has aligned with domestic groups opposed to the Turkish government. The U.S. Special Envoy to North Korea urges Pyongyang to pursue diplomacy with America. Sung Kim traveled to South Korea and discussed the uptick in North Korea's recent missile tests. The U.S. and South Korea also started annual joint military exercises today. With the lifting of coronavirus restrictions in Jerusalem, Christians were able to attend Easter Mass at the Church of the Holy Sepulcher. Thousands gathered in the historic Old City to celebrate Jesus' resurrection. The church's location is believed to be where the events recorded in the gospel took place from Good Friday to that first Easter. Coming up, Capitol Hill lawmakers react to the highest U.S. inflation in 4 decades. Plus, the Holy Father calls the faithful to witness Jesus' resurrection. Even though Congress is away for another week, new inflation numbers keep causing concern. Democrats say President Joe Biden has turned the economy around, but Republicans blame the president's policies for soaring prices. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
There wasn't much good news in the March inflation numbers, up nearly 8.5% from last year, as Americans took a major hit to their pocketbook. Price increases over the year include automobiles up 121%, home heating oil up nearly 106%, while gasoline rose 60% and food rose over 16%. Republicans jumped all over those numbers, accusing the Biden administration of trying to deflect blame. Senator Rick Scott issued a statement saying in part, quote, "Instead of owning the crisis it created, the Biden administration widely claimed that anyone blaming the president is in lockstep with Putin. It's an embarrassing example of how out of touch Biden's administration is with reality. And he's not the only one. Republican Senator Ted Cruz doesn't buy Democrats' reasoning on inflation.
Yes, as it exists. No, it's not transitory, but it's a good thing. Inflation is a sign of just how well the economy's going. And now they've settled on Putin, Putin, Putin. Blame it all on Putin."
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi thinks Democrats are up to the challenge.
So lowering costs at a time of inflation is a reality that must be faced and must be addressed and must be lowered. One place is at the pump.
But Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says Democrats need to stop making inflation worse.
The very least the administration must do is stop digging. No more reckless spending. No gigantic tax increases that would damage the economy even further.
Catholic Democratic Senator Joe Manchin agrees, writing, quote, "We cannot spend our way to a balanced, healthy economy and continue adding to our $30 trillion national debt." Congressional Democrats are aiming to spend another $10 trillion on COVID relief and vaccines. They say that it's needed to end this pandemic. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
And joining me now to discuss is Nate Hockman, Intercollegiate Studies Institute Fellow at National Review. Nate, welcome back. Great to see you again. As we just heard there from Eric, inflation continues to soar with gas prices up a whopping 60% and food costs up 16%. Your thoughts on that and the impact it's having on Americans, especially the middle class and those folks living paycheck to paycheck?
Well, I think those are the Americans who are the most hurt by inflation. And you heard a lot from a lot of different Republicans talking about the weird contradictory line that the Biden administration and the Democratic Party have been giving about this. And I think in this case, they're right. The Democrats are in real trouble. There's a broad sense, if you look at polling, that Americans across the board feel like the country is moving in the wrong direction. And I think inflation just caps that off because it is this feeling that is felt everywhere and by everyone that things are getting worse, not better, and that's going to really hurt them in the midterms.
Yeah, Nate, as we approach the midterms, we've been hearing a lot about a red wave coming. Talk to us more about that and the challenges that Democrats are facing, both against Republicans and with their own party.
Right. So it's almost certain that the Republicans are going to take back the House. But the question is exactly how big the red wave is going to be and if it's going to carry them into the Senate. But if you look at Joe Biden in particular, his declining approval ratings across the board, but particularly with traditionally Democratic constituencies like Hispanics, things look really, really dark for the Democrats. And if you see something like the Hispanic wave that is reflected in the polling right now, it's going to be a blowout, the likes of which we haven't seen since at least 2010.
Something else I'm going to talk about this afternoon, as we heard earlier from Owen, a judge in Florida overturned the federal mask mandate for travel on airplanes and other public transportation. Meantime, the city of Philadelphia is actually facing a lawsuit for reinstating its mask mandate today. That's due to a spike in COVID cases there. I want to get your take on that and what all this signals.
Well, it's clearly ridiculous, and I think the Democrats, unfortunately, are increasingly captured by a small but outsized, powerful ideological group of folks in the public health bureaucracy and in the progressive media who are clinging to this sense that COVID is still an issue, whereas the rest of the country, including most Democrats by a lot of polling now, have moved on. So the Democratic Party, or at least the fringe that really wants to do things like reinstate mask mandates, is not even reflecting their own voters in a lot of places now. They're reflecting a large amount or a small amount of very influential progressive elites who still care about this stuff. And that also is probably going to hurt them in 2022.
All right. And another thing I want to talk about is like the last time when you were on, we talked about Elon Musk potentially joining Twitter's board. And as you know, the billionaire has since made an offer to buy the social media platform, but not everyone is on board with it. Your thoughts on that and the future of Twitter?
Well, look, like I said last time, I'm all for it. I think there are huge problems with the way that Twitter is run. And I think Elon Musk, again, he is an erratic, crazy person like most geniuses are. But I think that I'd be happy to see someone come in and shake it up. The question is, A, obviously, can he get past the enormous amount of resistance that he's getting to actually buy Twitter? And then B, once he actually does buy Twitter, if he can, is he going to be able to actually take on a lot of his own employees who are often sort of ideologically motivated activists and are going to impose a lot of the stuff that he wants to do? So those are two big questions still, but I'm excited to see him give it a shot.
Nate, we have 30 seconds or so left. Quickly, what else are you following?
So I'm continuing to follow a lot of the polling surrounding, as we discussed earlier, the Hispanic realignment into the Republican coalition. I think the numbers for Biden and the Democrats continue to become more and more devastating, and it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out when it actually comes time for voters to show up at the polls in November.
All right, we will leave it right there. Nate, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Up next, how Italy celebrates the joy of the resurrection on Easter Monday. Pope Francis encourages the faithful, saying, "Be courageous and proclaim the joy of Easter."
Non temete, non avere paura.
This morning at the Regina Chaley prayer, the Holy Father reminded pilgrims that the risen Jesus wants to make us witnesses of the truth that sets us free. If we open ourselves and carry the gospel, the Pope observed, our hearts will open and overcome fear. In Italy, Easter Monday is a public holiday. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Tannhauser interviewed Father Giulio Maspero, an Italian priest from the Pontifical University of the Holy Cross, about the value of this celebration.
Yeah, thank you. We're here in the middle of Rome at the Santa Croce University. I'm joined by Professor Maspero, also to talk a little bit about today, Easter Monday. This is a big deal here in Italy. It's a feast day. There's no work, no schools. It's a big celebration. And Father, maybe you can tell us a little bit more. Why is that? How do people here in Italy see Easter Monday?
So we should start with what Easter is, and is the eruption of eternity into time, is the union, the definite union between eternity and time. And when you love someone, you want this one to live forever. So somehow in Italy we perceive that something changed, and so we celebrate with our beloved, with the people, our family, or the friends. We even go outside the city, into the nature, to enjoy somehow this victory of life over death. And because of that we stay together and we spend our time there. And we say in Italy that when you are having lunch together with the family, somehow you don't get old, because it's sort of eternity there. And we translate what happened in liturgy into this language of ours that is very familiar, very simple, but very effective.
So most of the people know what Easter Sunday is about and what we celebrate there. Why do we need Easter Monday? What do we learn about Jesus, about the resurrection on Easter Monday?
We should say that we couldn't have any idea of what resurrection was, because it was not just going back to immortal life like Lazarus. Is something completely different. Is the eternal, infinite life of God that is given to us. So we have no words, no concepts to express that. And because of that, on Easter morning, the holy women learned what happened from an angel. Matthew in chapter 28 told this, wrote this. And we keep a memory of this angel, so we are very grateful to this angel, because also Pope Francis told that only an angel could explain what was going on in Easter.
And very quickly now, Professor Maspero, how did you celebrate today, Easter Monday?
I joined with my friends, and we have a Weber, and we prepare something with that, good meat, and we spend 3-4 hours together. And also in the morning we pray, so we can celebrate a Mass that somehow is the same Mass of Easter or the week, because it's just one big day this week. And so we share the joy of Easter together.
Thank you very much. And with this joy of Easter together, we want to say also thank you for joining us here for this interview on Easter Monday.
And finally tonight, a dramatization of a beloved priest from Montana is now a motion picture. Father Stu tells the faith journey of Father Stuart Long from his Catholic conversion to ordination to terminal illness. The movie stars Mark Wahlberg, who recently spoke with ChurchPop.com about how Father Stu's story inspired him.
The way he handled this incurable disease with dignity and grace, and the way he impacted so many people, the way he utilized his real life experience to speak to people in a language that they understood, and his unwavering commitment and service to God.
Mark Wahlberg's full interview is available online at ChurchPop.com, and you can also read more about Father Stu at CatholicNewsAgency.com. The movie is rated R for language. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sabol. Good night and God bless.